Hello, everybody, and welcome into a new episode of Prep Rally, a production of the Daily Journal and djournal.com, high school sports webcast / podcast. And thanks for tuning in. If you're watching at djournal.com, and if you're listening to the podcast, well, go check the replay if you'd like to watch it. The podcast that drops in the afternoon, you can get it for free in iTunes, your podcast apps, or at preprally.djournal.com. I'm your host, Brad Locke, joined here in studio with Gene Phillips, of course, and Blake Morgan, the new guy. It's getting kind of crowded.
Right.
But we got a lot of football to talk about because it's late July and we got fall camp around the corner. The season's right around the corner, Gene. And we're going to get to all that in just a moment. I want to remind everybody to follow us on Twitter at DJournalPreps for updates there. And actually, we're going to turn that into the high school sports Twitter account, basically. But just a little heads up there. Working on that as we get into the football season. So anyway, we got Gene, we got Blake, the new guy. He was on the show last week. I'm sure y'all remember. How y'all doing?
We're doing well. I think we're a little bit more knowledgeable of football season than we were last week.
Well, you're up to your necks in it right now.
Yeah. So we're starting to pick up things, and we talk with coaches and talk with players and start getting some ideas about what's going on. We're knee deep, and it's going to be over our heads pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Gene, let's get started. Some key dates coming up, Gene.
Well, there's nothing more key than Monday. This coming Monday, practice starts for everybody.
It's August 1st, isn't it?
August the 1st. This first week, you're going different schools have different policies about what days they're starting. Some schools are starting like Tuesday, others are starting Thursday. Just throughout our region, when you've got 50-something schools playing football, everybody has kind of a different schedule. But according to the High School Activity Association, they can go out 2 days in shorts and T-shirts. They can go work out 3 days in shoulder pads after that.
Yeah.
And then on the 6th day, they can go full pads.
Okay.
And one school, I believe Baldwin told me they were just going to do their photo day on Friday, and the 6th day would be Saturday, and they will scrimmage.
Okay. And then after that, we've got jamborees, don't we, coming up?
Jamborees will be the 12th. Blake and I are in the process now. I'm trying to find out about the Starkville and the Oxford Jamborees that are held every year.
Yeah.
He was interviewing Coach Carter down at Shannon today, and they're playing in a jamboree in Starkville. Shannon is. So I've got to get in touch with our folks over in Oxford to find out if they're having that this season.
Okay.
That's usually a good one. But some teams are playing single games. I know Tupelo on Friday, August the 12th, goes over and plays 2 quarters against Etowamba. So everybody's doing different things. The season openers are August the 19th. That's they call it the MHSAA Classic game. Actually, all the money this year that you get on your Classic goes to the schools. So the high school, while it's still the Classic, you're not having to send a percentage to the high school activities this year.
Okay. So 23 days, fellas, to go back into high school football. Looking ahead, of course, we've got schedules in, I guess. We got all the schedules in, Gene. We're still looking for any?
Still need Hulka. We're going to find that today, though.
Where you at, Hulka? Come on. Holding out on us. Let's look at some of the key games, that opening weekend games that we're going to be keeping a close eye on, in particular, that the 19th of August.
I tell you, there's some really good matchups. That first one, of course, close to home, you got Clarksdale at Tupelo. I'll be at that game. That'll be a big one. Good test. Clarksdale is always a good program, good solid athletes. Some interesting games just going through. Aberdeen plays at Corinth. Aberdeen lost some of its good players from last year, but they're always good. Corinth's got a new coach, lost a lot of good players.
Yeah.
But I still think that's an interesting matchup. One kind of on the fringe of our area, Noxubee County at Starkville.
Yeah.
There's 2 perennial powers right there going after it. An interesting matchup that I saw, Alan Glenn, we talked a lot about him this summer, the former Tupelo assistant, now head coach at Amory. He opens up at home against DeSoto Central, a 6A school, plays in the same division as Tupelo. So that'd be a good test for him right away. And he's familiar with DeSoto Central, so having coached against them the last 2 years. Amory and DeSoto Central played last year. I don't remember the outcome, but it's just an interesting matchup.
about these early season matchups before you get into division play. You got all these division matchups. You got teams crossing classifications, as you mentioned, DeSoto and Amory. Yeah. So that's a lot of good games to start the season.
You got Houston at Pontotoc. Yeah. I like that match.
Yeah, me too.
That's a good one. Mooreville at Baldwin. John Keith going up to Baldwin. A lot of Baldwin, talking with those folks up there, they think this is their year to try to make a run.
Okay.
Get to that championship game, play Bassville. I think this is Bassville's last year as a school. They're going to be in a consolidated deal. So the Bassville dynasty ends after this year.
Wow. How about that?
And then another one, Saltillo at North Pontotoc.
Okay.
Zay Cullen's a running back at North Pontotoc, one of the best in the area, and playing 5A Saltillo. So that'll be a good matchup. So a lot of really good games.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mooreville a moment ago. Let's swing that mic over to Blake there, Gene. I want to get updates on a couple of teams. We talked with their coaches, Blake. Mooreville being one of them. We got John Keith, the new head coach. Kevin, a pretty good thing going there at Mooreville. So what do you know about the Troopers right now?
Yeah, I know they're especially on the offensive line. That was the biggest thing. My interview with Keith kind of harped on was the young up front, but he's real excited that the defense is pretty veteran laden. The secondary is 4 seniors that have been playing a lot of time together. So he's expecting an athletic veteran defense, but doesn't know quite how the offense will go. But being an offensive guy and an offensive coordinator, he played offensive lineman at Ole Miss, actually. So he offensive line is kind of his specialty. So he thinks that by the time division play comes around, he'll have the offense mobility, and the defense should be starting out where he wants it to be.
Okay. Any key players to keep an eye on?
Key players is one that he really harped on. He's going to be playing running back for him and wide receiver. Really anywhere in the offense. Keith said he's going to be moving him around a lot. Real explosive player. We'll even play some quarterback for him.
Oh, okay.
So he's going to be everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also you've been speaking with Sean Holliday over at Tupelo Christian.
Yeah.
TCPS.
They're real excited. They set the school record for wins last year. 8 wins.
Had a good year.
And he's expecting them to be even better this year. I don't know if the wins will be quite as high just because of the schedule and whatnot, but expects the team to be better. They have the largest team in school history, 30 players.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone back. He was talking about they lost only a few seniors, 2 really good leaders, but expecting John Mark Jolly to be back once again, to be a running back, wide receiver, as well as playing linebacker and punting. For them this year.
Yeah.
So it'll be all over. And then I've also been to Saltillo and Shannon, other county schools, if y'all want to hear about that.
Yeah. I just want to mention something about TCPS before you move on. I mean, Gene, you remember when that long ago that they had to skip a season basically because of they didn't have
2013.
Enough, 2013. They didn't have enough people. And then last year they had a really good year. I know they were playing as an independent. Are they joining a division this year? Or is that next year?
Yeah, it's their last year's an independent.
Okay.
And I've talked with the baseball coach, Will Lowry, about where they might go. And they honestly aren't sure. The school's been growing a lot.
Yeah,
they've been a lot of construction to keep up with it and whatnot on the school side. But they don't really know where they'll end up division-wise.
Okay. So find that out, I guess, when they do the reclassification, as they do every 2 years. Okay. But you said you've also spoken with
Saltillo and Shannon. Saltillo struggled last year. Talking with their coach Pat Bird, he said they were just really young. They started, I think he said 6 freshmen, and then but we're even starting juniors that had never played a snap before, just because the guys above them were so experienced last year, and so that really hurt him last year. But he expects pretty much all the guys to be back. Said 10 out of 11 starters will be back for Saltillo. So expecting big things from them. Playmakers wise, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they're expecting to be improved this next year.
And then Shannon, Gene and I have talked
Yeah.
about them a little bit. They had that 7-on-7 tournament they were in, and they got a couple of 3 transfers, I know, including 2 from Tupelo. So Daryl Carter, he's certainly expecting big things.
He's expecting very big things. I talked with him this morning, and he's fired up for the year. He said probably the most expectations they've ever had going into a year.
Yeah.
They have a sophomore quarterback who he expects really great things from. Huddleston is one of the running backs that transferred from Tupelo, which we talked about last week, but he said he's really come in and been a leader. And then one guy who we didn't really talk about last week was Buck,
Cameron Buck.
Buck on the defensive end. Coach Carter was praising him, saying he was an Ed Reed type player out there, and is real silent when he says that you could be in a room with him for 20 minutes and not know he was there.
Yeah.
But on the field, he's electric and is one of the leaders on the team.
Okay. All right. So there's some good updates there from Blake, and let's swing it back to Gene. I want to talk a little bit about a story you had today, Gene, about Kossuth football. Had a little bit of an update, but mainly it was about their logo, which I just found an interesting story. Of course, they've got that Longhorn logo, and anybody who follows college football knows it's modeled after the Texas Longhorns.
It is.
And Texas has now found out about it.
Yeah, it took Texas 18 years to find out that Saltillo was using its logo.
Kossuth.
But, the Kossuth. Charlie Dampier, who's a former head coach there, and now Charlie's a volunteer coach there, brought the Longhorn emblem to the helmet. They were looking for something. Saltillo is a former agricultural.
You keep saying Saltillo, Gene.
Saltillo.
I know Charlie coached.
I got Saltillo on the brain.
Well,
Charlie Dampier coached there.
He did. Anyway.
Kossuth. Kossuth. Kossuth had been an ag school for years. And he was wanting something, what better at an ag school than to have some kind of livestock
there you go
decal.
It's good for Texas. It's good enough for Kossuth.
And he doesn't know exactly how they came up with the Longhorn, but they did. He put it on a white helmet at that time, maroon Longhorn, and they've got Longhorns plastered all over that campus.
Yeah, I bet.
Texas has been really good about it. Once they found out, they did give them a cease and desist order. That's all to do with NCAA licensing. That's Texas has trademarked that Longhorn decal. Kossuth's been happy to comply, and they're not being fined or anything. They're waiting right now on how long they have to phase out the decal. They're going to give them a couple of years because you can't go. You got brand new uniforms and stuff with logos on them for basketball and baseball and things. You can change caps off of helmets and things, but a lot of things you can't change. So they'll be phasing that out. They've also made a proposed logo change, a little bit more futuristic looking Longhorn steer type headshot. I happened to see a copy of it. He didn't, the principal, Travis Smith, didn't want to release that right now in case it got voted down, but it looks good. They've got the horns going another way, and it's a little more futuristic. And he said if it gets approved, they'll start plastering it everywhere: T-shirts, shorts, hats, whatever.
Sure.
And but they can. And the football coach, Brian Kelly, told me they were planning on wearing the Longhorn on the side, the white Longhorn logo on the side of their maroon helmets this year because they can still. In the phase out process. Plus, they don't have time to order the new logo.
Exactly.
And so Texas isn't being really hard about it. They just say, and it's not the first time this has happened.
I've seen a lot of high schools that have done that.
Had the Tulane green wave logo with the slanted T and the wave going over it, and Tulane found out about it and did the same thing, a licensing. And Tupelo kind of came up with its own design logo, similar but different, and it was okay with Tulane, so that's what they use now.
Okay. Well, speaking of Kossuth, Gene, we've talked a good bit already about Jaylee Adams, the running back who set a state record last year with 543 rushing yards in a single game. But who else do they have besides Jaylee? Well,
they've got another running back, kid by the name of Hunter Brooks, who's 5'9", 185. Now Jaylee's about 5'9", 210.
Yeah.
But Brooks is a little faster running back, and Coach Kelly says probably the best 1-2 tandem he's ever coached.
Yeah.
With just the sheer speed of Brooks.
Sure.
And everybody, if you key on Jaylee, which I'm sure people will be doing, then you're going to take care of Brooks. One thing, they're breaking in a new quarterback, got a sophomore named Matthew Bobo. And of course you could say, well, all he's got to do is hand off, but you got to do a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
And he says he seems to be coming around, is going to do a good job. And they've got a receiver named Bo Lee, who could be a surprise this year. He's 6'3", 195, really good athlete.
Yeah.
And he's going to keep you honest when they start throwing the ball. And so Kossuth's got some other weapons. They do have to replace 4 offensive linemen.
That's a big deal there.
Easier said than done.
Yeah.
And those are blockers that Jaylee doesn't have this year too. So
all right.
Big things, looking for big things at Kossuth.
So is it Kossuth or Kossuth? Because I tend to say Kossuth.
I was calling it Saltillo. I'll just stick with that.
Is it Kossuth or Saltillo? How do you pronounce it? No, yeah. I always say Kossuth. I know some people also will say like Corinth.
Yeah.
Corinth. I'll just say Corinth.
Or Etowamba. Etowamba County.
Is there another way to say Etowamba? I'm not
Etowamba.
Etowamba. Really?
Etowamba, yeah.
Guess I haven't really noticed that.
Look, we don't, except for this podcast, we don't have to pronounce anything. We just need to spell it right.
Exactly. That's all we got to do, Gene. Well, good show, guys. Thanks for joining me again. Again, this is a webcast and a podcast. The podcast version will drop later today, as it does every Wednesday. And you can find it for free in iTunes, your podcast app, or at preprally.djournal.com. If you missed any of this webcast or just want to go back and watch it, look for it at djournal.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. We're at djournalpreps, and send us an email if you want to, preprally@journalinc.com, with your thoughts on the upcoming football season or whatever. We have a couple of other podcasts I'd like you to check out. We've got, of course, The Memo with myself and W. Derek Russell 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And you can access that on iTunes, your podcast app, or at memo.djournal.com. And Double Coverage, Ole Miss and MSU Sports Talk with Paris Alford and Logan Lowry every Thursday. You can find that in iTunes, your podcast apps, or at doublecoverage.djournal.com. The guys are off this week. They should be back next week with a new episode of Double Coverage. And we'll be back next week as well, that much closer to football season. So, again, thanks to Gene Phelps and Blake Morgan for joining me. And we will see y'all next Wednesday.